Welcome again to the old principal. 我就是老校长, and we've come to another English instructional program. Now, today's lesson is number 9 in the series. This is Toys for Little Boys. 给小男孩的一些玩具. And you can see that the little boy has a gun in his hand. This is a real gun. This is not a BB gun. 不是气枪. This one is a real gun. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, as we often say, of sentence by sentence, let's listen to Mrs. Ash as she reads the whole story.
Number 9. Toys for Little Boys. The traditional toys given to little girls were dolls that opened their eyes and cried, "Mama!" The traditional toys given to little boys were jackknives and model cars. But as we children advanced in age, our gifts became more sophisticated. One Christmas I received a new bicycle. That was a practical gift because I rode it to school for many years. We lived on the edge of the city. Since there were no houses behind our house, my father gave us slingshots for another Christmas. A slingshot is an outside toy made of a Y-shaped piece of wood with 2 bands of rubber attached to a patch of leather. Actually, it is more than just a child's toy because it can hurl little rocks great distances with pretty good accuracy. Initially, I was really excited, but that very Christmas Day I saw a bird in a tree a long way across the street. Much to my sadness, I killed the pretty bird with one shot. Then and there, I decided not to shoot at any living thing. A few years later, my father gave us BB guns as a Christmas gift. Dad taught us some safety rules before we used the guns. One rule was to always point the gun at the ground, never at people. Another rule was never to aim in the direction of a house. I must have been too excited because after Dad finished his short training session, I made a mistake. Almost immediately, I shot and put a neat little hole in my sister's bedroom window. Uh-oh. Should I tell Dad or not? I figured there was no way to hide the hole in the window, so I'd better admit to my mistake. My father's response was calm. He simply said, "Son, you will learn best if you pay to replace the window." It was an expensive lesson, but I learned well. In later years, we were given real guns with real bullets, but by that time, we had other interests, and the guns were seldom used.
Welcome back. Well, the traditional toys given to little girls were dolls that opened their eyes and cried, "Mama, Mama." Okay, these are the traditional toys, 传统的玩具给小女孩, okay, were dolls, okay, 洋娃娃 that opened their eyes, 张开眼睛, and cried, "Mama." You know, this is very interesting because just maybe 3 days ago, my granddaughter, 我的孙女, showed me her new doll. Now, she has many dolls. And so I was quite interested in her doll, and her daddy said, "Turn the doll on the side." So she turned it and it said, Well, I don't know what it said. I'm sure it was English, but it said something. Okay? But when I was young, if the doll said mama, then whoa, that was really a nice little traditional toy for a little girl. Going on. The traditional toys given to little boys were, okay, jackknives. Okay? Okay, what is a jackknife? This is a knife, 是一个刀子，能够合起来，叠刀啊。So it can fold up. 也可以合起来。Now, I think I have received many jackknives over the years. And, of course, you have model cars. A model car, 汽车模型. Nowadays, they're 电动的. Though in our day, none. But nowadays, these little model cars are 电动的. And you can even use 无线来控制它，遥控。Whoa, this is great for little children. And now we even have 遥控飞机. And my grandchildren have all had these things. But as children advanced in age, 他的年龄越来越大的时候, our gifts became more sophisticated. That's a big word, sophisticated. 复杂. Now, you can actually, sophisticated is the same as complex. Okay? So it's sophisticated, complex, young. Okay, so our toys became more sophisticated the older we got. Going on. One Christmas, I got a new bicycle. Now, a new bicycle was very good. For me, I thought it was a very good idea because the new bicycle was a practical gift. 很会使用的一个礼物. Okay, practical, 实用, 实际, 实用. Okay, gift. Okay, because I rode it to school for many years. 很多年，我是骑单车去学校. So it was a very good gift and one that I appreciated. Not all the gifts are so practical. In fact, sometimes children play with a gift for a few days and then 没兴趣. Okay, so this was very useful. I used it for many, many years. Going on. We lived on the edge of a city. Okay, so 我们是在城市的边缘. Okay, so we're right on the edge of the city. There were basically no houses behind us. Nowadays, there are houses everywhere. Okay, the city has come out to us. But in those days, there was no houses directly behind our house, 在我们家后面. So my father gave us slingshots for another Christmas. Okay, 另外一个圣诞节，他就给我弹弓 slingshot. Except for these slingshots are a little bit different. Do you know what a 弹弓 is? A slingshot? Well, there are many, many different kinds. Maybe 1,000 years ago, 没有橡皮筋. So they just had a long strap and they just threw and whoa, and threw it a long, long ways away. But nowadays, we use rubber bands going on. A slingshot is an outside toy. Okay, what do I mean by outside toy? 都是在户外玩的一个玩具。It's not 室内. It's not inside of the building. You can't play with a slingshot inside. You play with it outside. Slingshot, 弹弓, is an outside toy. It is Y-shaped piece of wood. 是一块木材，这个小小的木头做的呢，是有分叉的 Y 字形的 ，OK， and so you have two bands of rubber， 两条这个橡皮筋的 ，and then you attach a patch of leather， 这个小块牛皮 ，OK， so in the end, what you have is that you have this, and then you put your rock in there. We'll go over this, and you pull it back, and then, dong, and it throws, 把这个石头就射到很远很远的地方. Well, anyway, I'll explain that in just a minute. Okay, going on. Actually, it is more than just a child's toy. In fact, nowadays, you can buy some very sophisticated, there's very expensive slingshots nowadays. Okay, it's not just a child's toy. Today, not only children play with them, but grown men, 成人男女都会用 okay, and it can hurl, okay, 扔丢 or 射 little rocks 小石头 great distances 很远很远的距离 okay, and pretty good accuracy. 相当准 pretty good 就是相当 accuracy 准确的准 so that's your 弹弓 your slingshot nowadays. So my parents actually gave us slingshots, one for me, one for my brother. Now remember, my brother is a year younger than me, a little more than a year younger than me. Going on. Initially, what does initially mean? Initially means 开始的时候, at the beginning. I was really excited. 很兴奋 okay, but that Christmas day, okay, 就是刚好那一天呢，圣诞节那一天呢 I saw a bird in a tree a long way across the street. Now, a long way across the street. Across the street meaning that it's 在我们的那条街的对面. Actually, it was my grandfather's house. Okay, and so I saw this bird, and so far away, and it was winter time, so it was a woodpecker, a very pretty bird, but a long distance away. I said, well, I couldn't possibly to shoot and hit the bird. So, going on, much to my sadness, 使我很难过的，就是说 I killed the pretty bird with one shot. 我就射一次，boom, and I killed the bird. I was shocked. I mean, this was so shocking to me. 我难过得不得了。Then and there, 刚好，那时候。Then and there, I decided not to shoot at any living thing. I decided I would not shoot at any living thing. 凡是活的啦，我不会射它，我不会打它 no matter what. Going on. A few years later, my father gave us BB guns, 气枪. A few years later, my father gave us BB guns, 气枪. Also, as a Christmas gift. Also a Christmas gift. 圣诞节的一个礼物. Going on. Now, Dad taught us some safety rules. 安全守则. Okay? Safety, 安全, rules, 守则. Before we use the guns. Before we use the guns. He taught us these rules. Now, here is one of the rules. One of the rules is that you must always point the gun at the ground. Now, if this pen is the gun, you always walk around with the 枪口, okay, the muzzle, okay, pointed down, always. You walk around with it, well, you walk around and you're always carrying your gun like this. Always pointed down. 对着地, okay? You never point at people. 绝对不要这个对着人瞄准. Now, every year in America, there are some accidents, 有些意外, where people are shot, some are even killed accidentally. 无意的 accident. It was just, they were 不小心 because they weren't following the rules. 他们不守规矩那个守则Now, never point at people. Going on. Another rule was never aim in the direction of the house. Now, if you have a house, aim the other direction. 不要对着这房子瞄准. Okay? Don't ever aim toward the house. Going on. I must have been too excited. Have you ever been excited? Have you ever been excited and somehow the words of somebody important, like your father, they went in one ear and out the other? 左耳进右耳出. You know what that means? In one ear and out the other? You didn't pay attention, too excited, or for some other reason? I must have been 肯定是太兴奋 because after Dad finished his short training session, 我们的这个短暂的这个训练班 very short, okay, session, I made a mistake. That's right. I made a mistake. Here's what happened. Almost immediately, perhaps that very day, I aimed the gun at the house. Uh-oh, made a mistake. Well, I didn't think that those 气枪 that the little BBs would go so far. I didn't know that. And I put or made a little hole in my sister's bedroom window. I shot, and after I shot, I thought, oh, that's right. Daddy said, don't aim toward the house. So I aimed my BB gun down and I walked over to the house. And sure enough, there in the upper left-hand corner, okay, 左上角, I still remember what part. There was a neat little tiny hole in the window. 打了一个小小的洞. A neat little hole. It didn't split the glass, just a little tiny hole. In my sister's bedroom, 我妹妹的她睡房的一个窗户. Now what to do? Going on. Should I tell my dad or not? Somehow, in my estimation, I figured 我自己考虑 there was no way to hide the hole. Actually, come to think about it, it was a very little tiny hole. But I said, I can't hide. I cannot hide this. 我不要这个隐藏起来. I can't. So, I should, to had better, 应该, same as if I had better, 我应该承认我的错. So, I had better, 我应该承认我的错. Going on. My father's response was very calm. He simply said, son, you will learn best if you pay to replace the window. Basically, he said, you will learn best. 你最容易学会的方法, okay, is you pay to replace the window. 要换新的窗户，你自己要出钱. Now, my father, you need to understand, my father did not get angry. No, he did not get angry. He was a very calm person. 他很平静的给我回答. My father was this kind of person. But when Dad said something, you always paid attention. 总要注意他讲的话 all the time. Going on. It was an expensive lesson, but I learned well. 很贵的一个教训，所以这个教训的学费很贵。You know, I learned I had to pay expense because I didn't have a whole lot of money, but I learned my lesson very well. 真的是学会了。Going on. In later years, we were given real guns with real bullets. 过了一些年，我年纪稍微大一点，爸爸给我们真正的枪，真正的子弹 （bullet） 子弹 ，real guns, real bullets。但是 by this time， by this time 到了这个时候。We had other interests. 我们的兴趣已经跑到别的地方去。And very seldom, 很少我们用枪开枪。So we did other things. We weren't interested. But I'll remember my father had a cabinet, 有一个柜子, and he had many different kinds of guns in there. 打猎用的等等等. But even though my father enjoyed guns, I never ever did really become interested in playing with guns. Okay, here is our email address. Our email address is theoldprinciple@gmail.com. Our website, 我们的网站是 www.theoldprinciple.org. Hey, I've had fun sharing with you this story, and I hope that you'll join us next time for another story. Until then, bye-bye for now.